I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people have reached out to ask me about, and that would be cravings. And for many of us, this feels almost insurmountable at times. Something that's a huge part of our daily lives, especially cravings for alcohol. Now, I'm sure many of you have experienced this at some point. Those moments when you feel an overwhelming urge to drink. It's like this invisible force takes over, and suddenly it feels like you're not even in control anymore. It's as though a demon or something else entirely has stepped into your life and you can't escape it. Does that sound familiar? The feeling of being completely overtaken by something that feels bigger than you. I want to share something today that could change the way you look at cravings forever. Here's the truth about cravings. They're not your enemy. They're not a sign that you're failing or that you're broken. In fact, cravings are simply a signal that's trying to tell us something. When we understand what cravings really are and how to process them, we can take back control of our lives. So, what are cravings really? Let's start by breaking down what cravings actually are. So, at their core, cravings are thoughts and feelings that show up in our minds. They're not personal, and they don't define who you are. Cravings can feel overwhelming. When you're sitting there driving home at 5 o'clock and you feel that familiar pull towards alcohol, it's easy to think, I need this, I have to have it. It feels like the craving is in charge. But here's the key. That craving is just a thought that comes up because of a habit, one that your mind has developed over time. It's like a storm on the horizon. It looks fierce, but it'll pass. And here's something powerful I want you to remember. Cravings are temporary. They don't last forever. In fact, they're just like any other feeling or thought that comes and goes. They're not permanent, and they certainly don't define who you are. Now, the science behind cravings. Why do we feel these intense cravings? Well, alcohol does something powerful to our brains. It releases a chemical called dopamine. It's called that feel-good chemical. It makes us feel relaxed, happy, and free, even if only for a short time. But over time, we start to associate these feelings of relief and pleasure with alcohol. So when we're stressed, anxious, or just bored, the brain thinks, hey, I know what'll fix this. I need a drink. But what I've learned is that this is just the brain's automatic response. And that automatic response is tied to old habits. These are patterns we've built over time. And just because the brain thinks alcohol is the answer, doesn't mean that it is. The more we challenge those habitual thoughts, the more they loose their grip on us. So let's take a different approach. Instead of fighting the cravings or giving into it, what if we could simply acknowledge it for what it really was? It's just a thought, and let it pass without reacting to it. That's what I've found to be incredibly powerful. It's the power of awareness. Cravings are a signal. I want to share something that has been a game changer for me. The next time you feel a craving, don't see it as a battle you need to win. See it as an opportunity to pause, to check in with yourself, and to ask what's really going on here. When a craving hits, instead of reacting immediately, having a drink, take a moment to ask yourself, what am I really craving? What am I feeling right now? Is it that I'm truly thirsty, or is there something deeper going on? For example, when I was feeling a craving, I realized I wasn't necessarily craving the alcohol. I was craving the feeling that alcohol gave me, the relaxation. Or maybe I was feeling disconnected or stressed, and that craving wasn't really about the alcohol anymore. It was about my mind trying to fill an emotional need. And what I've learned is that the more I can step back and recognize what's really going on, the more in control I feel. So what happens when you do this? You stop reacting to the craving. Instead of simply giving in or fighting against it, you sit with it. You let it exist. And you ask yourself, what do I really need right now? And as you do this, you'll start to realize that cravings lose their power over time. Now, here's a third way: how to handle a craving. I want to introduce you to what I call the third way of handling cravings. When cravings arise, we often feel like we have two choices. We can either give in to them and drink, or we can fight them with all of our willpower. But there's a third option, an option that has been incredibly transformative for me. This way is about acknowledging the craving without giving into it or fighting it. Here's how it works. First, you notice the craving. The first step is to notice that the craving is here. It's a thought, an urge, or a feeling. Your skin is literally crawling, but it's not you. You don't have to act on it. Just acknowledge it. Oh, this is a craving. Here it comes. I feel the urge for a drink. Pause and reflect. Instead of immediately reacting, take a moment to reflect. What's really going on? What emotions are underneath the craving? Am I stressed? Is it a certain time of the day that triggers this feeling? Write it down. One of the most powerful tools I've found is journaling. When the craving hits, write it down. Get the thought out of your head and onto paper. This helps you distance yourself from the craving. Recognize it for what it is. It's just a thought. It's not a command. Also, hold space for the craving. Instead of fighting the craving, simply let it exist. Just sit with it for a moment. Don't attach shame or judgment to it. Let it be. And remember, cravings are like storms. They come, but they will always pass. Next, address your emotional needs. Check in with yourself. What are you really seeking? Is the craving coming from a deeper emotional need that you've been ignoring? Maybe it's relaxation. Maybe it's comfort. Or you need a break from stress. By identifying what you truly need, you can begin to meet those needs without relying on alcohol. Breaking the habit and redefining your relationship with alcohol. I used to tell myself stories about who I was when I drank. I'm more fun when I drink. I'm more confident when I drink. I need alcohol to unwind. But these were just stories that I had created in my mind. They're not truths about who I am. When I started to examine those stories, I realized they weren't helping me. And in fact, they were keeping me stuck in a pattern that didn't serve me anymore. The more I began to question those beliefs and challenge them, the more I realized that alcohol wasn't a necessary part of my identity anymore. And what realization was freeing? Self-compassion over self-judgment. The biggest thing that I've learned in this whole process is that cravings are normal. They don't mean you're broken or that you failed. Cravings are simply part of the process. And it's crucial to be kind to yourself in those moments. Self-compassion is the key to moving through with ease. When a craving hits, don't judge yourself for feeling the way you do. Don't tell yourself that you're weak or that you're failing. You're not. You're human, and you're doing the best you can with the information you have. The more I allowed myself to simply be in the moment with my cravings, without judgment, the easier it became to let them pass. I stopped fighting the battle. Instead, I learned to sit with the craving and let it go. Cravings are just thoughts. They're not your identity. I want to leave you with this powerful idea. Cravings are just thoughts. They are temporary. They are not personal, and they do not define who you are. The next time a craving comes up, instead of fighting it or giving into it, try acknowledging it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, what do I really need right now? And remember, cravings are not a sign of weakness or failure. They are simply a moment of discomfort that will pass. You don't need to fight your cravings. You don't need to give in to them. You just need to sit with them, process them, and let them pass. And in doing so, you'll find that cravings loosen their power over you. You'll experience true freedom from alcohol, and you'll begin to live more peacefully and authentically. I drank heavily for 40 plus years. I can help you. I know what cravings feel like. I know how powerful they are. Please reach out for help. There is hope. The more you learn and the more you understand about what's going on, the more freedom you'll have sooner than you think. woundednotconquered.com